In 1978, Superman made millions believe that superheroes were real. But in real life, many of the actors who appeared in the film lived in the shadow of illness, addiction, and accidents. Even Christopher Reeve could not escape serious tragedy, while a few others remained in the Hollywood spotlight. What really happened? Let's explore the untold truths and honor their legacy. Let's find out. Christopher Reeve as Superman and Clark Kent. At the age of 26, Christopher Reeve brilliantly transformed into Clark Kent, Superman in the blockbuster Superman, 1978, becoming the immortal image of a perfect hero in the golden age of cinema. The role not only made him a global star, but also shaped him into the Man of Steel, a hidden burden on his burgeoning career. Behind the dazzling halo, few could have guessed that a decade later, fate would deal him the biggest shock of his life. Born on September 25, 1952 in Manhattan, New York, Christopher Reeve was at the peak of his career and enjoying a fulfilling life with his wife Dana Morosini when tragedy struck on May 27, 1995. During a rodeo in Culpeper, Virginia, his horse suddenly stopped, throwing Reeve forward, his head slamming into the ground. The accident broke 2 vertebrae in his neck, leaving him quadriplegic and unable to breathe on his own. Overnight, the hero of a generation was bedridden, completely dependent on machines. Yet Dana remained by his side, never leaving him, becoming his only support and a courageous voice that gave him spiritual strength for the next 9 years. Their love that seemed to end in tears became a bright light in Reeve's darkest days. On October 10, 2004, Christopher Reeve breathed his last at the age of 52 due to heart failure related to complications from a paralytic ulcer. His net worth at the time of his death was estimated at $10 million, but that figure could never measure the spiritual legacy he left behind. More than 900 people attended his funeral at Juilliard, including Robin Williams, Meryl Streep, and others who called him a hero. When he died, he still had his wedding ring on his hand, a symbol of his undying love for Dana, who passed away just 17 months later. Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. At the age of 30, Margot Kidder brought Lois Lane to life in Superman, 1978, a sharp, courageous, and charming reporter for the Daily Planet. With her bright eyes and distinctive voice, Kidder was not only the perfect partner for Christopher Reeve, but also became the model for countless Lois Lanes to come. However, behind that Hollywood smile was a fierce, rebellious, and deeply troubled soul. Born on October 17, 1948 in Yellowknife, Canada, Margaret Ruth Kidder entered Hollywood with grace, charm, and a free-spirited nature. But the spotlight could not hide the darkness inside her. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder at a young age, a condition that sent her into a vicious cycle of medication and self-destruction. In 1996, the nation was shocked when Kidder went missing for several days and was found, her hair disheveled, lying in the bushes in a stranger's yard. Despite her courageous return to the public eye, she has always carried a lingering pain from her illness, the pressures of fame, and the untold stories of her life that Hollywood has never told. In her later years, she lived a reclusive life in Livingston, Montana, surrounded by mountains and wolves, whom she regularly fed from her back porch. She once said that if she died, she should be wrapped in a bedsheet and let the wolves carry her away. On May 13, 2018, Margot Kidder died at the age of 69. The cause was later confirmed to be an intentional overdose of drugs and alcohol, a death that was ruled voluntary, although it remains a matter of debate among family and friends. Her net worth is estimated at $3 million. Perhaps the most beautiful image in the memories of those who loved her is that of Margot alone in the Montana wilderness, touching the fur of a wolf, with a smile that was both wild and gentle. Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. At the age of 48, Gene Hackman left a lasting impression with his legendary villain role as Lex Luthor in Superman 1978, a cunning, ruthless, and extremely intelligent role, directly confronting the symbol of justice, Superman. At that time, Hackman was already a veteran actor in Hollywood, an Oscar winner and known as one of the toughest guys on screen. But no one could have guessed that nearly half a century later, he would enter the final chapter of his life, a life of terrifying loneliness and mystery. Born on January 30th, 1930, in San Bernardino, California, Eugene Allen Hackman once said he felt like he was living in his own movie when his memory began to fail due to Alzheimer's. Years after retiring from the spotlight, Hackman lived in seclusion with his second wife, classical pianist Betsy Arakawa, in a secluded mansion in Santa Fe, New Mexico. But in February 2025, tragedy struck. Betsy died first, on the 11th, from a rare virus, and Hackman, suffering from severe heart disease and late-stage dementia, was no longer able to think or care for himself. Gene Hackman finally died on February 17, 2025, at the age of 95. His net worth is estimated at $80 million, but his will, which left his entire fortune to his wife, was controversial, as they both died less than a week apart. According to the pacemaker data, both he and his wife had been dead for days before their decomposing bodies were discovered in separate rooms of the house. The images of his body lying silently beside his cane and sunglasses, and Betsy slumped beside a spilled pill bottle, evoke a scene of desolation and loneliness that was terrifying. After more than 30 years of being together in silence, their deaths, in a house with no visitors, no surveillance cameras, and no family nearby, shocked the world. In the memories of his friends and family, he was not only an on-screen supervillain, but also a devoted husband, a complicated but sincere father, and ultimately, an artist who ended his life quietly, as if he had chosen to disappear as a final scene in a film. Marlon Brando as Jor-El. Marlon Brando was 54 years old when he made a brief but powerful appearance in Superman, 1978, as Jor-El, Superman's biological father. Despite only appearing in the opening minutes of the film, Brando received a record salary at the time, proving his immense charisma and influence in Hollywood. With his sad eyes, his angelic demeanor, and his deep, enchanting voice, Brando not only played the role of an estranged father, but also seemed to embody himself, a talented but tragic man. Born on April 3, 1924, in Omaha, Nebraska, Marlon Brando grew up in a broken home with an abusive father and an alcoholic mother. These childhood traumas shaped his rebellious, defiant, and uncompromising personality from an early age. Brando became a pioneer of method acting, famous for roles such as Stanley in A Streetcar Named Desire and Terry in The Harbor. But in real life, he was a true bad boy, known for his many complicated love affairs, sex addiction, food addiction, and shocking statements. He once claimed to have had homosexual experiences and was not ashamed of them. His family life was a series of tragedies, with his son, Christian, convicted of murdering his sister's boyfriend, and his daughter, Cheyenne, committing suicide in despair. These personal tragedies, along with numerous lawsuits and costly divorces, left Brando financially destitute in his later years. On July 1, 2004, Marlon Brando died in Los Angeles of respiratory and heart failure at the age of 80. At the time, weighing over 300 pounds, he lived in solitude and illness, although his net worth still hovered around $20 million. His life was a chaotic symphony of genius, desire, and profound loneliness. When Brando said, "I don't care what people think of me, he meant it, breaking every rule, burning every standard, and leaving an irreplaceable legacy in the history of cinema. Terence Stamp as General Zod. At 40, Terence Stamp struck fear into the DC universe as General Zod, Superman's most dangerous enemy, in Superman 1978. With his calm demeanor, cold eyes, and authoritative voice, Stamp not only stunned audiences, but also cemented his status as one of the most memorable villains of that era of cinema. However, behind those cold blue eyes was not just an alien dictator, but also a man torn between two worlds, the glitz of cinema and a painful inner life. Born on July 22, 1938 in East London, Terence Henry Stamp was the lover of legends such as Brigitte Bardot, Julie Christie, and Jean Shrimpton. His life was so turbulent that the tabloids followed his every move. But when Shrimpton left, Stamp was devastated. He disappeared from Hollywood, renounced fame, and sought refuge in ashrams in India, immersed in meditation and spiritual enlightenment. He said that at that time he no longer knew who he was outside the spotlight. Those years of seclusion transformed him, marking a strange turn from sex symbol to philosophical hermit. He later recalled with wry humor that he had been thrown off the horse of sex after 60 years of clinging to it, and felt relieved. As of 2025, Terence Stamp is 87 years old. He is still alive, still meditating, still wearing the 1968 suit as an immortal statement. His net worth is around $10 million, but no number can measure the mysterious presence he leaves in the hearts of his audiences. No more wild nights or villain roles. Stamp now chooses yoga over lust, tranquility over chaos. Glenn Ford as Jonathan Kent. At 62, Glenn Ford gave one of his warmest and most emotional performances in Superman, 1978, as Jonathan Kent, the calm, hardworking, and devoted adoptive father of Clark Kent. Appearing in just the opening scenes of the film, his gentle eyes, soft voice, and simple philosophy of life left a lasting impression, serving as a reminder that even superheroes need a kind heart to thrive. However, behind the Hollywood glitz, Glenn Ford was a stark contrast between his on-screen fatherly image and his personal life, full of conflict, scandal, and horrifying secrets. Born on May 1st, 1916, in Saint-Christine d'Auvergne, Quebec, Glenn Ford burst onto the film scene with his good looks and natural acting style, quickly becoming one of the most sought-after leading men of the 1940s and 1960s. But alongside his fame came a life of control and chaos. Ford was notorious for recording all of his phone conversations for over 40 years, not only with lovers, but also with politicians, celebrities, and close colleagues. The list of people secretly taped ranges from Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan to Frank Sinatra, Lucille Ball, and Ava Gardner. The system was not simply about preserving memories, but also about insecurity, jealousy, and the fear of betrayal. He originally installed it to monitor his first wife, Eleanor Powell, because he suspected she would discover his numerous extramarital affairs. Powell eventually divorced him for adultery and cruelty. Ford had affairs with at least 146 actresses, most notably a decades-long affair with Rita Hayworth, his co-star in 1946's Gilda. The two continued to be involved until the early 1980s, despite having families of their own. He also had relationships with Joan Crawford, Brigitte Bardot, Marilyn Monroe, Judy Garland, and many other stars. Many short-lived relationships, 4 failed marriages, and a reputation for being incapable of commitment. On the surface, he appeared elegant and austere, but in his personal diaries, Ford confessed to feelings of emptiness, repetition, and addiction to conquest, which led to alcoholism throughout the 1950s and 1960s, even as he remained a box office star. Glenn Ford died on August 30th, 2006, at the age of 90, after years of battling heart disease and circulatory complications. When he passed away, he left behind an estate worth about $12 million. But what many people regret the most is that a once famous legend, Valerie Perrine as Eve Teschmacher. At 35, Valerie Perrine became a silver screen sex symbol with her role as Eve Teschmacher, Lex Luthor's flirtatious and seductive lover in Superman, 1978. With her mischievous smile, stunning figure, and comedic acting style, Perrine brought a breath of fresh air to a cinematic universe full of stodgy heroes. Although it was a supporting role, it was one of her last major high points before her career was slowly eroded by bad choices and a Hollywood that increasingly ignored women past their prime. Born on September 3, 1943, in Galveston, Texas, Valerie Ritchie Perrine was considered a phenomenon of the 1970s. She made a strong impression with her role as Honey Bruce in Lenny, 1974, earning an Oscar nomination and a Cannes Award, a spectacular leap from Las Vegas stripper to leading lady. But behind the glamour were years of turmoil, complicated celebrity relationships, drug rumors, and a career that began to derail after Can't Stop the Music, 1980. She narrowly escaped the Manson family massacre thanks to a last-minute shift change, a fateful detail that haunted her. As time passed, Perrine faded into obscurity, living quietly in increasingly small roles and a life plagued by Parkinson's disease, which she was diagnosed with in 2015. In 2017, she had dental surgery due to side effects from her treatment, and the former beauty icon now struggles with even the most basic functions. As of 2025, Valerie Perrine is 82 years old and lives as a recluse in Beverly Hills, California. Her net worth is estimated at $1 million, a modest figure given her once great fame. Her life was told in the 2020 documentary Valerie, where viewers watched as a once bright star was slowly consumed by time and illness. Yet despite the tremors of Parkinson's, she carried herself with a unique grace, the kind only someone who has seen the highs and the lows and lived to tell the tale can possess. Sarah Douglas as Ursa. At the age of 26, Sarah Douglas gave a stellar performance as Ursa, the ruthless warrior from Krypton in Superman, 1978, a role that catapulted her to global fame. With her angular face, piercing gaze, and cold demeanor, Douglas became an iconic female villain in the science fiction genre. Even when standing next to big names like Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman, she stood out with her dangerous looks and commanding beauty, an iconic performance that she never lost throughout her career. Born on December 12, 1952 in Stratford-upon-Avon, Sarah Douglas trained at the National Youth Theatre and Rose Bruford College before pursuing a professional acting career. And although she beat out over 600 candidates to win the role of Ursa, her path was not a bed of roses. Hollywood in the 1980s treated women like her poorly. Douglas spoke out about sexism and ageism in the film industry. After Superman 2, and her role as the villainous Queen Taramis in Conan the Destroyer, her film career gradually shifted to supporting roles, television appearances, and B-movie projects, despite her undeniable talent and charisma. As of 2025, Sarah Douglas is 73 years old and still active in the entertainment industry, from stage and television to voice acting in animated superhero series. She is a regular at fan conventions, especially Superman anniversary events, where she is always greeted as a living legend. Her net worth is estimated at $2 million, modest compared to Ursa's cultural influence, but a true reflection of a long and honorable career that never relied on flash, but always maintained integrity. Jackie Cooper as Perry White. Jackie Cooper was 56 years old when he returned to the public eye once again as Perry White, the hot-tempered but principled editor of the Daily Planet in the 1978 Superman series. With his heartfelt performance and commanding presence, Cooper not only brought life to a classic supporting role, but also proved that a 1930s child star could survive in a changing Hollywood. Few knew that when he shouted, "The ghost of the great Caesar," he was also carrying with him a life of hardship, bitterness, and extraordinary resilience. Born September 15, 1922 in Los Angeles, John Cooper Jr. entered the film industry before he could even read a script. From being a cute kid in the R-Gang movies to being nominated for an Oscar for Skippy at the age of 9, Jackie was the embodiment of the American dream. But his childhood was anything but a fairy tale. His biological mother was emotionally abusive, and his uncle, who was also a director, once threatened to shoot his dog just to make it cry during a scene. After World War II, Cooper's career stalled, and he fell into depression and alcoholism. But instead of giving up, he chose to leave the Hollywood spotlight, move to New York, start over, and rebuild everything from Broadway to television, from acting to directing, even running a studio. He once vowed never to act again, but he returned, quietly and courageously. On May 3, 2011, Jackie Cooper passed away in Santa Monica, California, at the age of 88. The cause was determined to be natural causes, and he passed away peacefully. No scandal, no tragic final moments. His net worth is estimated at $5 million. He titled his memoir, "Please Don't Shoot My Dog," not only as a tribute to his painful past, but also as a humorous way to forgive. And that's exactly what Jackie Cooper left the world with. A life of honesty, courage, and constant growth. Susanna York, as Lara, has retreated into loneliness and illness. At the age of 39, Susanna York played Superman's biological mother, Lara, in Superman, 1978, although she only appeared briefly in flashbacks on the planet Krypton. Her delicate beauty, clear blue eyes, and regal demeanor perfectly portrayed a noble, intelligent, and self-sacrificing mother. However, behind the Hollywood glamour, Susanna York's real life was filled with quiet sadness, not because of scandals, but because of the painful silence she endured until the end of her life. Born in 1939 in Chelsea, London, Susanna came from a prominent family and was raised in an intellectual environment. From an early age, she was passionate about the stage and showed a rebellious spirit. She was expelled from her all-girls school for taking a nude bath at midnight. But that rebellious streak, combined with her natural talent, saw her quickly become a key figure in British cinema in the 1960s, making her mark in Tom Jones, 1963, and reaching her artistic peak with an Oscar nomination for her role as Alice in They Shoot Horses, Don't They?, 1969. Yet, in the glamorous world, Susanna York was outspoken about the stifling and sexist nature of the film industry. She was often seen as an English beauty rather than a profound artist, which led her to shun commercial roles and turn to the stage, where she could fully control her emotions and ideas. In late 2010, when she learned that she had multiple myeloma, a painful form of bone cancer, Susanna refused chemotherapy. Instead, she decided to continue performing until the end, completing a final role in Ronald Harwood's Quartet as a farewell to her art. On 15 January 2011, she died at the Royal Marsden Hospital at the age of 72. Her net worth is estimated at $3 million. Jack O'Halloran as Non. When Jack O'Halloran was 35, he sent shivers down the spines of audiences around the world with his portrayal of Non, the giant, silent, and brutal butcher in Superman, 1978. Standing 6'3", with a deadpan stare and a face like a lost child hiding behind a terrifying power, O'Halloran didn't need a single line to strike fear into the screen. But what few people know is that behind this seemingly emotionless character is a man who has lived under the spotlight of boxing, the shadow of crime, and secrets that Hollywood has never dared to touch. Born April 8, 1943 in Philadelphia, Jack O'Halloran grew up under a mysterious identity, the illegitimate son of notorious mafia boss Albert Anastasia, founder of Murder, Inc., and one of the most brutal figures of the American Cosa Nostra. Though he was not raised openly in the underworld, O'Halloran was soon drawn into its web of power and violence, working as a law enforcement officer, guarding underground casinos, and profiting from illegal gambling operations linked to boxing. For a time, he seemed destined to inherit his father's criminal legacy. But internal conflicts, betrayals from his associates, and a near-fatal purge forced him into hiding for a time in Boston. That was the turning point. Leaving the underworld was not easy. He was hunted, cut off from all contact, and left with almost nothing. But he chose to start over, returning to the stage and moving into film, where he found early success with Farewell, My Lovely, 1975. As of 2025, Jack O'Halloran is 82 years old. He lives a quiet life, still appearing at fan events and writing books, including Family Legacy, a controversial memoir about his mafia ties. His net worth is estimated at around $1 million, which is not much, but he has never pursued material wealth. For him, fame does not come from money earned, but from overcoming the ghosts of the past. Ned Beatty as Otis. At age 41, Ned Beatty made audiences laugh and sometimes shudder as Otis, Lex Luthor's clumsy, greedy, and somewhat idiotic right-hand man in Superman, 1978. Despite his supporting role, Beatty brought a unique, subtle charm. He was not only the comedic foil, but also the balance between the tension of the villain and the nobility of the hero. The role marked a turning point in a film career that spanned 5 decades, as Beatty became a household name, though few could name him on the spot. Born July 6, 1937 in Louisville, Kentucky, Ned Thomas Beatty began his career in a church choir before moving on to the stage at age 19. He was not your typical movie star, without the flash, the aura of superstardom, but his down-to-earth personality made him one of Hollywood's most reliable supporting actors. Often relegated to comedic, silly, or lovably chubby roles, Beatty still delivered powerful moments, such as in Deliverance, 1972, or Network, 1976, the latter of which earned him an Oscar nomination. Although he occasionally expressed frustration at not being given the lead role, he never seemed bitter. "I feel sorry for people who have to be stars," he once said. It was completely unnatural. On June 13, 2021, Ned Beatty passed away at his home in Los Angeles at the age of 83. The cause of death was kept secret, but was believed to be due to age and poor health. His net worth is estimated at $5 million, not a huge amount, but a testament to a prolific career that included more than 160 film roles. No scandal, no great tragedy. Ned Beatty lived and died the way he appeared on screen, quietly, steadily, and leaving a warm smile every time he appeared.